Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday Night Breakdown Monday edition. Daniel Ratledge and Dave Forrester with you to look back over all of the action in the British Basketball League and make some sense at the end of that London-Manchester game as well.
Mhm.
Let's start on Wednesday night with the European games. I was doing another European Euro Cup game on Wednesday night. And because the game, which was Voluntary 84, Newcastle 76, started a little earlier, I was able to watch some of this. But when I switched off, it was a tied game, and then they ended up losing by 8, Dave. So I didn't see how or why.
Yeah, I thought I was actually quite enthused by the way that they played because Voluntaria, they're not possibly quite as good as they were a couple of years ago, but they're quite a high budget team, second in the Romanian league. They're a different level team to the other teams that they've played in that competition. And they really in Newcastle's issue has always been competition as opposed to talent, I think.
Mm.
And they were really, I thought, competitive and physically into the game and made plays all the way through. They got up about 8 with about 7 minutes to go,
Mm.
but they missed foul shots in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I
That
saw that
was
bit.
4. Johnson missed a couple, and their offense kind of split. And voluntary, I think, picked it up a little bit. And it was a little bit like Euro Cup insofar as voluntary had kind of Euro Cup size. It was like a 6'6" guard. The wings were big. And the bigs were proper big. And I think they just kind of wore them down. Newcastle couldn't make the right shots. Probably underplayed Austin a little bit. He only played 15 minutes. Um, and as I say, if you're playing on the road in Europe, you can't miss 7 foul shots in the fourth quarter in
Yeah,
a
yeah.
5 point game. Doesn't matter whether you're up 8 or down 8. If you miss that many foul shots, you're going to struggle. But overall, I actually thought it was probably better than they played in the games that they won.
Mm. Mm. The other game that night, London Lions 81, Hamburg Towers 83. Obviously, I was doing different games, so I've not seen this one either. But I was really surprised that they lost at home to the Towers because Towers have not been very
Well, they
good
kind
this
of played
season.
the first half in kind of sleep mode. I watched bits of it because I was there's a football match on. I was watching it on the Bet365 on the phone.
Mm.
Um, and I think they would do a letdown. That was the European, they won like 6 or 7 in a row.
Mm.
A tremendous record on the road. They've actually played better on the road than they have at home. At home, their times come out a little bit slow, and they certainly did in this game. And Hamburg kind of punished them early. Um, Made some shots, got up, and then you thought, well, this is going to be a game where London flicked the switch, and they did kind of flick the switch, but there's only so far it will flick depending upon the level of the opposition.
Mm.
And by flicking the switch, that just got them back to parity. And they didn't make the plays at the end, and Hughes made the shot. There was some big shots from there. VJ King made a big shot, 2.5 minutes to go. Hughes made the shot to win the game. Durham made plays throughout the game as well.
Mm.
Um, and I just think it was one that was coming for them. I don't think it's not must win. It's would really like to win.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And whereas it probably was must win for Hamburg, they're kind of on the
Yeah, I mean they're almost out of reach, to be honest with you, because it's
right.
the top six. But for London, it's that thing of the top two would be so important, I think,
Yeah,
moving
but you
forward.
tell the players that in December,
Yeah,
when
yeah,
look for game after game after game after game,
yeah.
they ultimately that's what the coaches would like. I just think they lacked the urgency in the way that they played early on in the game, and they left themselves slightly too big a hole to dig. I mean, they played Thursday, they played Wednesday, Friday, Sunday this week. They
Mm.
played a lot of games.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it'll help them down the stretch. But yeah, it would have been nice for them to win. It's a loss that they might regret in February when the
Mm.
group are set up. But I wouldn't say it's not been coming. They've been stretched, certainly at home.
Let's go to the British Basketball League action then. On Thursday night, Manchester Giants 103, Bristol Flyers 80. Brad Green's first 3-point shot of the first made three of the season in the British Basketball League. Flyers out to a 13-6 lead, but Giants hit 6 of 10 from 3-point range in the first quarter. They had 12-0 and 11-0 runs in the first quarter and led 33-18.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things about this game. Manchester were just the aggressor throughout, and sometimes it's easy to be the aggressor when you're knocking down shots, and obviously they were knocking down shots. But they jumped on Bristol when they were knocking down those shots, and they kind of did to Bristol what Newcastle should have done to Bristol the week before, but Newcastle weren't there to do it because Bristol are, they played Tuesday night. The week before they played Tuesday night in Europe. They played lots of games and their bodies are down, and then all of a sudden, after about halfway through the second quarter, turns his ankle. He's in an ice pack on the sideline, and Manchester just didn't miss. And because of that, and because of the lack of depth of Bristol, they weren't able to get the stops that they needed to get back into the game. But Manchester are a weird team. They really are. You try to discern what they're running. You try to discern that the patterns of play. They're individualistic. They bring, they're bringing Walsh off the bench to give them a massive boost at the moment. They've got Americans here and there who are contributing when you don't expect them to. You've got Jamel, who's always there. Is William Lee healthy or is he not healthy? I'm not quite sure. And the two big guys. And they just ran Bristol out the building, and good for them for doing that. I thought Bristol lost. I thought Bristol got a pretty tough shake in the first half from the refs.
Yeah.
There was 3 or 4 calls.
So one of them was the presumably, I'm guessing here, presumably was the Walsh on the buzzer shot, which was.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't. I mean. Well, I was had a bugbear with refs about this when I was on the bench. It was like, once you get down to kind of 0.3 or 0.2 or maybe, then you have to have an idea what can happen in that time. You can't rely on, the person at the clock pushing the button at exactly the right time because there's a lag, right? And so I think what happened is I think the clock was 0.2 of a second late starting, and when the shot went up, I don't think the red light was on.
Yeah.
There's no way in the world the red light shouldn't have been on, because you can't, in my view, and I'll live with this forever. You cannot catch the ball down there, raise up here, and then shoot it. I'm sorry, not in 0.3.
So the rules is that you can get a shot off in 0.3, but I agree with you. You can. I'm not sure you can get that shot off in 0.3 the way he shot it. But so here's my pushback to that, right? I think it was the basketball gods evening things up, because actually I don't think there was 0.3 left on the clock when the foul was committed. There was at least 0.5. I think it could have been as much as 0.9. And my sense is there was probably enough time for that wall shot had the clock been right in the first place.
I didn't check. That's a fair comment. It worries me that in a kind of a big moment that that's the way it is. And if I'm a ref, I know what they can do in 0.3. I'm not looking at the clock. It's probably entirely wrong. Probably technically wrong. Probably get you in trouble. But the reality is what you can do. This you get a tip in 0.1. You can get a kind of a push shot in 0.3. You catch it and you push it. But you can't lock into it. So they were a little bit unfortunate with that, but they didn't end the quarter particularly well.
No. As you said, Ollison drives into the key 3 minutes into the second quarter, steps on Lawton's foot, rolls his ankle, never came back, was in an ice pack. Stampley and Anderson hit threes to push it past 20. Manchester had 51 points before the 15-minute mark. There was another one. There was a Lawton block, by the way. That was a blatant goaltend.
Blatant goaltend. And I watched it the first time. I thought, I was just kind of casting an eye over the game. I wouldn't say I was locked into the game. I was casting an eye over it. I didn't look right. And you got they're the type of calls you have to make, because they're 4-point swings. Because teams go down the other end and make a play, and that's also that really annoys coaches when that happens. There was a call that Green got on an illegal screen where he basically didn't touch anybody. There was another call Green didn't get where he kind of got up in the air and someone came over his back. I just thought they got a rough end. But what I will say is Manchester were the aggressors. that doesn't make up for missing a goaltender and then go down the other end and score, but they were the
Mm.
aggressors overall in the game. So it didn't ultimately have much of an impact, I don't think. And yeah, Bristol just need a little bit of help, and what they don't need is a freak injury. It's not a usage injury. It's not an overplay injury. It's just that, just a turning his ankle like that. That can just happen to anybody at any
Mm.
time. And if it happened to them at this point, to him,
Mm.
probably their most important talismanic player, I would suggest. I think that they just got the impression that they were going to keep playing, but they didn't have it in them to get the stops that they
Well,
needed.
the other thing is Smith never came out in the second half. I did
Yeah,
actually go back and look to see what if I could see why, and there wasn't anything obvious in the last minute. He came on for like the last minute 20 of the second quarter,
yeah,
but never came back on in the second half. So they were mega thin
yeah.
in the second half and never threatened to come back. Walsh 22 again equals his
Mm.
career high, second time, 5 of 8, shooting 11 of 12 free throws, 4 assists.
I think he's
And
the definition, just on, I think he is the basketball definition of reckless abandon.
yes.
He plays, we're not playing without fear, it's playing almost without care. He feels he can get to the rim on anybody. If he's open, he's going to shoot it. He's coming off the bench, so he's probably not having to think as much in relation to fitting in with other people. He's got a role.
Mm,
It's kind of the other way around. You expect that's been Nick Lewis for the past 10
mm,
years,
mm.
and now it's Evan Walsh, and Nick Lewis is running the team. So, look, they were physically competitive, Manchester, and they did exactly what they were meant to do in that game against an undermanned Bristol team and a slightly weary Bristol team. Sorry.
Anderson 5-7 shooting 16 points and Lewis 15. Jacob 20, Graham Bell 16, Green 15 points 13 rebounds. Friday night, the Sky Sports game, Leicester Riders 96, Caledonia Gladiators 90. Teddy Allen was in, Mike Bothwell was in as well. Onwards and DeBose at one end, Mackenzie leading the charge for Leicester at the other end, free flowing in the first 7 minutes, not really anything between them, 18-16.
Yeah, and I mean, I was really impressed with Mackenzie because, we on these, when we're doing this stuff, and a lot of the fans, oh, well, they got beat by 37 by London. We just, well, that's London that we expected, right? But pros don't think like that. Right, but pros have to go in every game thinking they can win. If they're not going to be pros. They wouldn't have got over all the barriers that they've got to become a professional player. All right, and losing by 37 should hurt. It really should hurt. And I thought Mackenzie came out like it speared him in the gut because he he started the game. He looked to shoot the ball at every opportunity. He played with a kind of a passion to him, an aggression to him, which I thought was just which was kind of saying, look, we're here, we ain't losing by 37 points again. And that I thought was absolutely critical in the way that they played, in the way that they set about the game.
Yeah. And then the Gladiators, I seem to have frozen on my own screen, by the way. I don't know if I'm frozen to you, but I can.
You are actually, yeah. But to
Yeah,
be fair, you've got a very thoughtful pose. So
thoughtful pose. We'll
yeah,
keep. It's like the little emoji, thinking emoji, isn't it?
yeah,
Well, we'll see if it keeps going. Gladiators finished with 9 points in a row at the end of the first quarter to make it 18-25. Alan obviously comes into the game. First few minutes, he didn't. He looked slightly out of sort. He looked like a dude who's just not played for months and come in. But when that
yeah.
first score went in, he suddenly flipped into comfortable mode, didn't he?
He certainly did. Well, there's two things about the game. I thought overall, and we'll get to the end obviously in due course. I thought overall Caledonia kind of got suckered into it.
Mm.
Got suckered into an up and down game, which isn't their way. Hasn't been their way all season. And they got suckered into it because they were scoring very easily, particularly early on. I think they had nearly 50 at half time.
Mm.
And they're playing obviously with Moore instead of Ali Hozic.
Mm.
And and Buttrick as a backup five. And that changes the way they play because they're a lot more precise through Ali Hodzic. They throw him the ball more. They slow down a bit more. Lots of things go through him. Whereas with Moore, it's a little bit freer and easier. And that's fine, but that's not been, so it gives them kind of some offensive punch, but that's not been their identity. And when you won the road in the BBL and the British Basketball League, you win with your identity, and that this wasn't their identity this game. Teddy Allen's a show on his own. To be honest, he's clearly extremely talented. His college resume is beyond most BBL, most British Basketball League recruits, certainly mid-season recruits. The CBL, we all know, is a pretty strong league because we know the crossover of players who play there. And I think Pat Whelan averaged 8 points a game in that league or something like that. And Teddy Allen's come in, he was the MVP. 27 points on 22 shots a game. So you're thinking, wow, okay, this is going to be an experiment, because Leicester have never really had a guy like that, not for years, not in their system. They've never really won that way. And the advantage of obviously for Teddy Allen is that, and for Leicester to a certain degree, is that he's coming in off a 37-point loss.
Yeah.
So I mentioned it briefly last week. So none of the other guys can complain. You just lost by 37. You need me. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I'm going to be the player I am. His game was exceptional. There are a couple of moments, if you're looking for pickiness, where he didn't do this or he didn't do that. But there's two things that struck you about him. One, he can get to the rim, certainly to his right on anybody, because he's got size. And two, he made 5 threes.
Yeah.
And that means he can shoot. And there weren't 5 kind of standstill. Okay, let's see if this guy can shoot threes. They were proper shots. They were off the screen and roll. They were off the catch.
They were bottom of the net threes, weren't they? They were
absolutely. They were shooter threes. So that's two tools. 6'6", can get to the rim and can shoot. You add in kind of a few intangibles, decent size, rebounds, and you wonder why he's here. Well, obviously he's here because he had some difficulties in getting established in professional basketball. He was in Belgium. He didn't last in Belgium very long. So he's almost a typical kind of British Basketball League, resume builder. This is a chance to put me on the put him out there. And in the meantime, he helps Leicester tremendously because he's effectively giving them 2 players output for the price of 1. And what I mean by that is, it's not about the points that he scores; it's the shots that he shoots. If he's putting up 22 shots a game, then and he's efficient about that. That's 2.5 players worth, which is helpful to them because they're a bit short. So they need somebody to shoot those shots. It's not like he's coming in with another 9 guys who are all looking for their own shots. The little story, I was thinking back because whenever we get kind of an unusual talent in the league, I always try and think of parallels from my own time or from before my own time or from just from memory. And the nearest thing I could come about, and he's probably a bit better than this lad, was a kid that Newcastle signed, one of the first guys I actually helped Newcastle sign in 2007, 2008. He was a subsequent GB international, but initially came from Australia. A guy by the name of Steve Levin, who was actually played some matches for GB in the run up to the Olympics. He was 6'6" guard, Australian with Scottish parents, and he signed for Newcastle in February because they'd had Richard Midgley earlier on the season, lost him. Then they'd lost the cup final with a Dutch guard called Brian de Vars. And the first quarter 11 played. He played against Worcester Wolves at the arena, and I was a fan at that point. And he played the second quarter of that game, and he had 17 by the half. He just dropped shots from everywhere. He had a really good resume, but he bounced around. He came from Iceland, basically hadn't found a home where anybody would listen to him. And for 3 months, he actually helped Newcastle win the league that year. They won the league, I think in a game at Guildford. He scored 31, but then they flamed out in the playoffs. And there was rumours of some kind of issues in the background, which weren't overly helpful. And to be fair, Levin didn't really play much. I think he went across to Holland or Belgium at one point, but he didn't really make much more of a career of it. And the reason I raise him is because it's kind of mid-season. It's a guy who's kind of a high-level, high college talent. Comes into a team who really needs scoring. And what Alan did was really impressive, as a basketball player, to come into that environment and just to play free. He played in the screen and roll, he made reads. He looks, I don't think he's necessarily going to be the easiest guy to play with, but he's not going to be the hardest guy to play with either. That makes any sense. He's not It's not just a head down go. He seems to understand the flow of the game, and to move the ball. And ultimately, Leicester are going to have to decide whether he starts or whether he's better off in that kind of hired gun role off the bench. But over the course of this game, Caledonia kind of didn't really grasp the nettle with him. They didn't. Obviously, they hadn't had a scouting report. They didn't really kind of figure it out on the fly that if this guy's in the game, he's going to be making plays or getting shots up.
Well, he had 14 points in about 6 minutes as Leicester went from 9 down to 42, 43 just before halftime.
Yeah, exactly. And they needed that because they are a little bit short in relation to bodies compared to teams like Caledonia who've been playing together. And obviously Caledonia just brought Bothwell in. It's a bit of a harder gig for Bothwell because he has more pressure because he's coming into a systematic group who are basically looking for another piece. They're not looking for a guy to kind of pick them up by the collar.
More pressure, but probably a longer leeway to get to that point, sort of thing. They weren't expecting him to go for 32 on debut, whereas I'm not saying Leicester expected him to go for 32 on debut, but boy, they were hoping he'd do something.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. I actually think it's harder for the guy who gets to shoot the ball 5 times a game than the guy who can get to shoot the ball 20 times a game. I just think you've got to pick your spots. You got to be impactful. But you're coming off the bench, and you're a rookie. He's a rookie from college, but he kind of fits Gareth's mode. Good size, can pass over. Doesn't appear to jack shots up that he shouldn't shoot.
Well, he only took 2 in this game. He made both of them.
You know, but see, he's got a bit good. But what they lost a little bit of was they got into a running game, and I think as part of that was not having Ali Hodzic on the court, who was the anchor, and that hurt them. And you know, scoring races always favour the home team. I'm fed up saying it, but it's getting truer every week.
Well, with Moore on the floor, they started 15-4 in the. He was getting a lot of space, to be fair. They led 53-66, so up 13, and you thought, here we go. And then Mackenzie and Allen hit through threes. Adowu and Holmes at the basket. Leicester got it down to 69-71 at the end of the third.
Yeah, and you know, Leicester is not an absolute panacea for Leicester. You know, their defense still varies between below average and passable. You know, that's probably the highest I would get for them, particularly in the first half of this game. They really didn't play much in the way of defense at all, or certainly they had limited resistance available to Moore. The guards were getting to the rim, all of that. But if he can find a group of 5 guys who can kind of sustain them defensively for periods, then they're going to be tough because they're going to score. You know, and they're going to be explosives because they've got some explosive scorers. Thomas is an explosive scorer. Holmes is an explosive scorer. Not going to be every game, but there's going to be times where they're going to go off. And you add another one in there, and that will hopefully create for Leicester create more space for everybody. Then they're going to be tough if they can get stops. It's one thing winning at home, though. It's another thing doing it on the road where you got to get stopped.
To be fair, they've been pretty good at home all season. Obviously they got beat first game of the season, caught by surprise, I think, by Cheshire. But other than that, I think only London have won there.
Yeah.
Mackenzie, sorry, I did that bit. Thomas tied the game with the 3, and then Allen 2 threes to push Riders away, and then Holmes sealed it with 3 of his own. He's talking defensively. The one thing I would say that I thought they did well late in the game, Leicester, was push them off the 3-point line.
Oh, they were much better in the second half. They benefited from Patrick Whelan going 1 of 8.
And the one was the 8th.
One was the 8th, and that was, you know, and Surrey got the rough end of that.
Surrey got the brunt of that. The regression to the mean took its course in Surrey.
So they benefited from that. But no, the defense was far better. And that's what I'm saying about Leicester. If they can get, you know, if you can find a unit that's regular, that's going to be able to be not even tigerish, but just kind of clawy, just going to claw their way in there. They're not going to be overly big, not the way they are at the moment. Thomas is a small or big, if I can put him that way. Walker and Adowu is a small big, and Walker's struggling a bit with the mobility of Moore. So they needed a big game from Adowu. Got a big game from Adowu. And is that going to be there every week. That's the thing that Leicester have now. I think they would. I'm sure Rob would still prefer one more big body. Doesn't have to be a really big body, but a reasonably sized body to
A 4 that could slide into 5.
yeah, basically, to kind of finish them off. But ultimately, they're now with Alan, they're going to be in every game if he's able to sustain that degree of confidence. And given his record, given his numbers in CBL, there's nothing to say that he shouldn't. Obviously, the issues are going to be: can he fit into Leicester? Can he deal with all the things that young pros have to deal with? Can he start a professional career for himself? Because if he can, he shouldn't be. He's probably not going to be playing in the British Basketball League for long. But so this is a real test for him, being away from home, putting everything that's happened in the past behind him, and seeing if he can make a go of himself.
Well, he made a go of himself in this one. 32.6 rebounds, 5 of 7 for 3. Mackenzie, 19 points, 5 of 8 shooting. Adowu, 14 and 6. Leicester were 11 of 22 from the 3-point line.
Well, those Leicester guys aren't going to complain about Alan scoring 32 points on 19 shots, 20 shots.
Yeah.
If he's scoring 18 points on 20 shots, everybody's going to turn around and look whatever. But when he's making shots like that and making them in the way that he did, he's going to be a guy you enjoy being next to.
Yeah, DeBose had 22 points and 7 assists. Interestingly, both he and Alan shot 10 for 19, and Alan obviously had 10 more points.
Yeah.
Moore, 18 points and 6 rebounds, and Onwas, 15 points and 6 rebounds. So, if I can get my paper to work, what's going on here? There we go. Let's go to the Copper Box. London Lions 102, Cheshire Phoenix 95.
Scoring race.
Yeah, it was a scoring race, wasn't it? Yeah. Not really anything in this in the early stages. Both teams had their little runs, but as you say, first 14 minutes it was 33-33.
Yeah, Cheshire playing with a kind of a we don't care who you are kind of mentality, I thought. And their guys doing what their guys do. London playing with a kind of a little bit of a we don't know who you guys are mentality. We're not that fussed about anybody in the British Basketball League. We're not going to try and take certain individuals away. We're gonna play and we're gonna figure out a way in the end. Because it's December and it's not April and they don't have to be concentrated on it. It was a fun game.
Yeah. I actually thought this was probably the best anybody has played London, given the London they were playing.
Yeah, well, it's probably the best they've scored on that London team.
Yeah.
And at time, at times there was some forward browse with London and Buzic. Yeah, and you're probably going back to that. You're probably going back to that first Newcastle win in overtime when Newcastle were up 13.
Yeah.
Going back to then, since you actually saw them as actually being kind of London thinking this isn't meant to happen.
Yeah.
When London have got some of the other guys on, they're more kind of okay. We know where we're at, but when they're playing, when they've got the superstars in the game, this isn't meant to happen. The fun thing about this game was I watched it back because I watched the Leicester game first, and it was Office Christmas party on Friday night. So I probably watched it at like 1 o'clock in the morning on without knowing the score on YouTube. And my little trick, obviously the little trick is every time the ball goes out of the bound under the basket, someone scores. It's a quick 5-second push of the button. Get up the court. But every time I did that, I missed something. I was like, oh, what's happened there? Someone's shooting the ball at the other end. It's like, whatever. Wow, so the pace of the game was really, I thought, impressive. And I thought Rye was a different level. I mean, Rye was
Lions
really good.
Yeah, Lions had an 8-0 run. Rye had 10 in a 12-0 reply to make it 41-45 just before half time. Then Jack hitting threes, Knicks with the 16-7 start to the third quarter, and they'd pushed it out to 51-65.
Is this a game where there was a couple of dodgy unsportsmen? There's an unsports night call on Christian.
Yeah, I was just about to get to that. Yeah.
Yeah. that was like, oh, how are you, man?
So
Uh,
there was an 8-0 run from London and then an 8-0 reply from Cheshire to make it 59-73. But as you say, there was never an unsportsmanlike at the end of the third quarter. What happens is, because Morgan is coming forward, Christian's trying to take a take foul
yeah,
to stop, because I think they had one to give.
yeah,
And what Morgan's done is he's seen him coming for a take foul, so he pushes up to try and pretend he's shooting a 3-point play. So
yeah.
therefore, it elongates the contact that was there, but it wasn't. It wasn't an unsportsmanlike
Well,
foul.
it's just like, I've argued, if that is, then there's 10 that we watch every week that
Mm.
are and that aren't called, and we've
But I thought that, again, going back to the earlier comment, I thought the basketball gods cleaned that one up themselves with
yeah,
Rideau stealing the ball and running back a dunk on the
yeah, that
inbound.
might be true. And well, it's just a little bit. It's not so much even the two shots in the ball. It's the fact that if he gets a fast break foul or something, he's out
Yeah,
the game.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And as a player, all you want is certainty. There was actually one in the Leicester game. I think there was no sportsmanlike at the rim, which I didn't think.
Yeah, it wasn't.
And then there was another one where I think Moore got hit on the shoulder, which was basically exactly the same, but it wasn't in a fast break, so it didn't look as bad.
Yeah, yeah,
What wasn't called the other end, So I think I much prefer the old way, which is, look, if it's going to be on sportsmanlike, you get your money's worth.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You get your money's worth. And if we had this thing a while ago about every take foul is unsportsmanlike. Well, they've clearly given that up.
Mm.
Really not interested in that anymore because we see take fouls every week, and they're not calling them. So it's a bit much for a player who's been called one way all season to get that happening to them.
Yeah, yeah.
So I felt a bit for them, and then yeah, and then London kind of flicked the switch.
Yeah, start of the
Yeah,
fourth quarter. It was interesting because Lloyd was talking about, and I actually spoke to him afterwards about it, and he was saying they were just trying to get a couple of minutes for Jack and Rye at the start of the fourth quarter, and before you
it
know
fell
it, it's
apart.
10-0, and it's a 2-point game.
Yeah, and they came in a bit quicker, and that's kind of the thing they've done all season. Is Rise had that burst at the end of the third quarter, then he gets a couple of minutes, and then he comes back in again. The twist is with taking both those guys off the court at the same time, you've got to get some production from everybody else, and it can only be. And with London, it's literally 3 or 4 possessions.
Mm.
Every possession, because if it's not 3 or 4, but it's 10 the other way. If you have
Yeah, yeah,
possessions which aren't what you want them to be, a turnover, a run out, a cheap foul, a three for Morgan, Connor Morgan, whatever, and you know that London are picking it up because they're realizing now. Well, hang on a minute. Okay, it's still December. But this team's second in the league.
yeah, yeah, yeah. To me,
Oh,
in my head, I thought London were going to come out, make a statement, say, here's the
I
gap,
think
and then you don't have to worry about losing away at
I think
Plymouth
they're
in the
beyond
grand
that.
final.
They've beaten them twice already.
Mm.
I think that they're at that kind of comfort level.
But just to give them the cushion in the table that
Yeah.
allows them to drop
I'm
one
sure
by
the coach
accident.
would have liked that. I don't. That's
Yeah.
why they put the team out that they did. I
Mm.
don't think the players are thinking like that at the moment. I
Mm.
think the players are thinking if we need to win a game at some point, we're going to win a game.
Mm.
But they also have pride, professional pride, which has got them to where they are in their careers,
Mm.
which is out London earning splodges more than everybody else
Mm.
because of the way that they managed in their careers. And losing by 14 at home on your home court to the team that's second in the league is not a good look.
No.
And they turned it up.
Yeah.
And they
That that 10-0 run actually became a 19-2 start to the fourth quarter. They were 84-79 up. And actually, at that point, it looked like they were going to run away with it. But to be fair, White and Rye hit some threes and set up quite a grandstand finish.
well, I thought Rye was great. I mean, he's been obviously been injured. He had the first 3 or 4 games, and you guys talk at length about player of the month of September when they only played two. Everybody only played 2 games in September, so that's like, so what? But and then he had the injury, and he's come back. And there are times where the most impressive thing about Rye is his ability to take over games when it matters,
Mm.
and to defer when it doesn't. When he doesn't need to. And in this game, I think he played this game like, from the beginning, that this is a game I'm going to show out in this game. This is London, where we're second in the league. I'm up the top there. And this is my game to show just how good I am against all these guys.
Mm.
And to that degree, he didn't take it quietly. And as you say, when White's on the court, anything can happen. It's just, let's say he is the most dangerous 35% 3-point shooter in the
Yeah.
because the amount he puts up and what he does to the team. So yeah, so they kept it close, but not quite close enough.
So let's get to the end of it. Chargois, 2 free throws, 92-93 with 146 to go. Morgan then went to the line, 139 to go. He only made one of two. It was his only missed free throw of the game. Ties the game at 93. 116 to go. White at the end of the shot clock missed a three. 103 to go. Morgan again draws a foul. It was White's fifth foul. 2 free throws. Puts it to 93. I put 93, 95. That must be 95, 93, mustn't it? Rye was then blocked by Morgan at the other end, and then Matt Morgan drives, kicks to Decker in the corner for three, 98, 90, 93.
Yeah, and that's the game, really. And that's why having Decker in the corner is a luxury that any team would want, and that's a higher standard in the British basketball league. And they set it up so they know what's happening. They set it up with Morgan on the right hand side. He knows he can get downhill to his right against anybody. He knows as soon as there's a little bit of help, he's gonna throw the cross court pass. So I think it's Olaseni or Sharma's rolling down the basket, draws the corner man in, bang, Decker, and that's a layup for Decker. And that's the difference when they've got Decker in the corner as opposed to having Queeley or Sandy or Kabosa in the corner. It makes it. That's why lineups matter so much.
And then Conor Morgan had a block on Rideau on the next play, and that was definitely it. Matt Morgan, 28 points, 13 of 14 from the free throw line, 7 fouls drawn. So that's every time he's fouled, he's going to the line. Decker, 22, Olaseni, 16, Rye, 32 points, 8 rebounds, 10 of 11 from the free throw line, 7 fouls drawn. Jack, 23 points, 5 of 7 for 3, and Chargois, 11.
I mean, if you think about that, though, Matt Morgan has no matchup on that Cheshire team other than Rideau, and Rideau really is normally guarding the point guard and kind of foraging around looking for steals, because everybody else on that Cheshire team is like 6'3" or up. So you're looking at Stevens or Holden or Jack. None of them are going to be able to stay in front of Matt Morgan. Matt Morgan's 6 foot and grease lightning. So that's why he's able to draw fouls, because he knows he can get to his spot. So, and defensively, Cheshire have been kind of struggling a little bit, I think, recently. Their talent is not wearing off, but they're being caught standing around a little bit more on defense, and I think they're going to have to have a look at that moving forwards.
Let's go to Hey,
95-point rule.
Yeah, 95-point rule. Let's go to Sunday. Surrey Scorchers 72, Caledonia Gladiators 80. Gooden back into the starters for Surrey, first time since October. Steele off the bench. Gladiators got a couple of rhythm threes to start 8-0, but Surrey did respond with an 11-2 run to make it 11-10. But
yeah, Surrey looked like a team that had been off for a while, I thought. I mean, Gooden came in the starting lineup, and Gooden was the only one who really appeared to be absolutely locked in and ready to play. I think they took Steele out the starting lineup to put Gooden in. If I'm wrong about that.
Yeah.
No, because it was Wang, Mohammed, and Jameson in the front court with Robinson and Gooden. And I don't know, I'm not sure I like that. I think Steele is a big X factor for them, because he shoots the ball really well. He spaces the court really well, and he has the ability to get to the rim as well, particularly off his left hand on the drive. And he doesn't need the basketball. More importantly, he doesn't need the basketball. So it kind of changes everything in the way that they play when they have Gooden, who probably does need the basketball a bit more, and Wang, who's not really a spot-up shooter. He's looking to get to the rim. He's looking to attack off a dribble. He's probing the defense. So it kind of takes away that one extra shooter that they have. And I thought I'd hurt their rhythm a little bit early. Gooden made some plays to keep them going. But this was a Caledonia pace basketball
Mm.
game.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
was, I think Gareth must have told them in the locker room after the Leicester game that we ain't going to win games on the road if we give up 96 points,
Mm.
if we want to get involved in a happy, clappy, runny type of game. And they grounded out, and I thought Dubose and Whelan were really, really good.
Yeah, wheeling some wide open threes and then a 7-0 run. Caledonia started the second quarter. It was 18-28. If I'm honest with you, I never really felt like Surrey were getting back after that. They did briefly cut it to
Yeah, you
4 at
said
the
that in the
start.
commentary,
Yeah.
actually.
It
Yeah,
just
you said that
felt.
in the commentary. I thought that quite perspicacious for you. Yeah.
Mm, mm.
Uh,
It
uh,
didn't feel like they had the.
no, they had and
Mm,
that's why I say it was a Caledonia style
mm,
game, because they were kind of under control for it. And Surrey scored, but they scored in kind of bunches from
mm.
Jameson made some shots, then somebody else made some shots, and somebody else did, but it was never consistent enough. And their 3-point shooting is their litmus,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
didn't shoot the ball well. And
No, they
as
didn't.
I say, part of that is that they changed the lineups a little bit. And Robinson missed a couple of early ones. Lawrence really never made the shots he would make, and Cooper's kind of got a bit of a target on his back because teams are going at him offensively.
No, I'm not.
When he's on
I'm
the
not sure
court, they're
he's
attacking.
fully healthy either at the minute. He didn't
No,
quite.
yeah, maybe you're right.
As I
And
say,
yeah, so
go on.
go on.
They got it to 4 at the start of the fourth quarter, and a more 3-point play and a Malcolm dunk had it back to 9. And 9 in this sort of game felt like a big margin.
Yeah, just a bit flat.
Mm.
Kind of disappointing for Surrey because they have you've got a whole week to prepare for a game on your home court. You're not traveling anywhere. Caledonia coming playing on a Friday night and then a Sunday, and they're traveling all halfway down on Friday, and then they're finishing away on Sunday. So you'd think that's one that they can get. But then again, Caledonia have the extra motivation of losing that game on Friday night. And Surrey have that kind of maybe a little bit of a comfort level in relation to the fact that they've been getting better. And there just wasn't that level of kind of desperation that you saw in Surrey. I didn't anyway. And of course, there is not forgetting that the baseline gate play.
The baseline game. Oh yeah, indeed. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd forgotten.
Yeah, we can't forget our favorite kind of latest. It's on Twitter if anybody looks at it. I saw it at the time. The fantastic moment where two of the Caledonia players do a kind of after me, after you, Chuckle Brothers scenario, which ends up with the one who's put, I think it was maybe in Poliza throwing the ball in, who gives a giveaway sign of lifting his heel up, so
Yeah, yeah,
he's actually out of court. He picks the
yeah,
ball with one hand, throws it to the guy who's already walking out of bounds, bounces off him, and the ref decided to have another go at that, which
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
very generous indeed,
It was very
because it was
generous.
a violation,
Mm,
and sometimes. Yeah, sometimes those things go for you, sometimes they don't. That one didn't.
mm. Gooden 18, Jameson 17 points, 8 rebounds, nobody else in double figures. Whelan 4 of 5 from 3 for 17 points. DeBose 15 more, 14 points and 10 rebounds. Let's get to the chaos then. London
Oh,
Lions 99, Manchester Giants 91 after overtime. No Decker, Grantham, Solowadi for Manchester, for London
no,
even.
Philip.
Yeah.
No,
No, Philip. Yeah,
Philip.
yeah, 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 yeah. He's been out as
Yeah,
well.
it's four. Yeah.
Lee and Anderson threes. Not Lee Anderson, obviously.
Oh,
I don't think 30p Lee is much of a jump shooter, but Lee and
I think
Anderson
you regard it as a foreign sport, which needs
probably
our
would.
crimes, and to be honest,
Needs to be sent to
probably
Rwanda.
should deport it. Deport all these American immigrants. Six per team. Can you imagine 6 per team
Yeah, yeah,
being flooded?
yeah.
Manchester is full.
Sorry, I don't know where I've got that from. Lee and Anderson threes.
Just not saying this is not an endorsement of that, not an endorsement of that idiot's policies, but I'll keep my political affiliations out of it.
Giants had a 5 to 14 lead, but line straight back to a 1-point game. I should have just skipped that bit of the game, shouldn't I? Walsh had 9 around the first. He just keeps doing this, doesn't he? At first quarter breaks in a 14-3 run, and it's 11-point lead to the Giants, 22-33.
Yeah, but London were in that kind of balancing minutes out, and you're always looking on the court and you're seeing who's there, and they were really struggling with the young guys playing because the spacing just isn't there, the rhythm isn't quite there. But because they're 4 down, he has to play that. And then on top of that, you get Luke Nelson having a hissy fit par excellence, and getting himself a fourth foul and on a first technical, which actually could have been a second technical if it hadn't been dealt with so generously beforehand. And of course, Keith, we had Keith, didn't we? Keith is back.
Keith do the? I thought Keith did the Surrey game. Did he? I've got mad now.
Oh, did you do the Surrey game? That was yeah. Of course he did.
He was definitely somewhere. Right. Yeah,
he was doing the Surrey game. I'm confusing. I beg your pardon. Keith was the Surrey game. My bad. But he's back anyway, which means that it's got hard work, more work for your directors. So I'll say that we need it. I want a Keith come. But if you're talking about doing all these new newfangled TV stuff and all the replays and all of that stuff, I want to see the sign. I want to see everything. I want to Keith camp. Anyway, back to London. Sorry. Yeah, so they were really struggling with the younger guys in the court, and it keeps other teams close, and teams are going to get wiser in relation to how to defend them and who they were. I think Rob said on commentary at one point, you're kind of happier with Caboza shooting that one than anybody else, it's just numbers. These guys, it's just numbers. Not to say these guys can't play, but it's a difficult situation for them. And teams are becoming a little bit more gelled, a little bit more aware of what they're doing, and they're getting better. Every team in the league is getting better. Particularly the ones who are healthy. And Manchester are an example of that. Bussier's been good. Anderson's been good. They're all kind of fitting into a role. And the young guys who just kind of play in the games when the coach needs them, but don't play in the other games in London, they're struggling a bit. So it was always going to be that kind of balance. And Manchester are an athletic team and a challenging team. So if you don't kind of match them, you don't match their energy. And of course, it's London's third game in 5 days with some of those players. And Olaseni in particular was pretty un-Olaseni like in this game. Then Manchester have a shot, and they got themselves a shot all the way to the end.
Yeah, so it was the same thing in the third quarter. Lions got it back to 1, Giants then pushed it back out at the end of the quarter to 13. And I will now do my best to try and explain the chaos that happened. But to be honest with you, you'd be better off watching the last minute of regulation of this game, because nothing I can say here will quite do it justice, I don't think. So it's a minute to go. Nelson scores to cut it to 72-78. Manchester need to run the clock here. Lewis is double teamed. He throws it to Borsier, who is open on the 3-point line, but inexplicably shoots a 3 with 53 seconds to go. There are still 16 seconds on the shot clock. At least there might have been more, and he misses. So
when he shot that ball, a little part of me died.
Yeah.
Sure which part, but just like, that was like Kennedy for Newcastle last year. Sorry, but Kennedy made it.
Yeah, exactly like that. Yeah, what the hell are you doing? Yeah. Borsier didn't make it though, so Lions got the ball back with 49 seconds left, down 6, instead of what should have been about 35 seconds when they got the ball back.
What's worse for Borsier, because Borsier is the point guard. He's probably the only true point guard on that team. He has to know time and situation. He has to know that 17 seconds are worth more than that. He's basically saying, "I'm going to win the game with this shot." Whereas that's not the play. The play is to win the game with that shot with 34 seconds on the clock.
Yeah. So Morgan goes quick and he's fouled by Anderson, 44.7 seconds to go. Morgan goes 1 for 2, 73-78.
Yeah, the crazy thing about the whole situation, Dan, sorry to cut you off, wasn't what happened. It was that London did their very best not to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, missing foul shots, not doing making plays, crackers. Sorry, go on.
Walsh with a terrible pass under a bit of pressure, but fortunately for him, it bounced towards Borsier, who gets the ball in the front court, and he is fouled. There's 35.6 seconds to go, but it's only the third team foul of the quarter, so it's the sideline ball. Borsier then throws it way over Anderson's head, but Taylor was called for a foul.
Him. Yeah, bailed him out. Yeah,
and it probably was a foul, but he probably wasn't catching the ball if you hadn't have fouled him.
True. Nailed on.
So there you go. So Borsier is still on the inbound after that one. Not a great pass this time to Lawton, who's jumping in the air out of bounds.
You see, and I mean, just on strategy purposes, yeah, my education was always that your point guard is the one who comes to get the ball. But when he throws the ball, the argument is your point guard's the best passer, so you want him on the basketball. But my point guard is also my quickest guy, probably my best foul shooter. We had a whole season where we just threw it to Trey. Jesus, in the game, just throw it to Trey Moore, but Trey would make sure you gave him the ball. And others as well. And you guarantee that, if Leicester are running an inbounds play, then Kimball's not throwing the ball in.
No.
And that's
Whelan's not throwing it in for. I know he's not a point guard, but he's not throwing it in for Caledonia.
So I'm like, so that was that. So he ends up throwing it to Lawton, who's not a good foul shooter anyway, and Lawton nearly steps out of bounds, doesn't he?
Yeah, but he sort of jumps up in the air, throws it down, gets a slightly fortunate ricochet because it goes off Olasheni's foot and out of bounds. So they've had a couple of goes at it, not got it in. So 33.9 seconds. So Borsier, again, still the same guy with the pass. I think at that point I might have changed it, given the two previous passes. There you go. So another pass that kind of leaves a teammate into trouble. Anderson this time is jumping out of bounds, trying to keep it in play. He throws it nearly away, but Lewis is able to get in the corner. He's trapped. And then he tries to throw it back to Anderson, and he throws it away instead. And you think, oh, here go London. They're on the fast break. But then Conor Morgan slips over. Anderson steals it back. And I'm going, what the hell is going on? It's Keystone's cop stuff.
I'm thinking, just get the ball, your point guard. You know what I mean? Just find your point guard.
Well, London got it to their point guard, but he fell on the floor.
He fell on the floor. So so at this point you think, well, they can't lose. As I say, London trying to win.
Yeah.
It's a 5-point game, 30 seconds to go. Keep going.
So finally they get the ball in to Anderson with 26.6 seconds to go, and he is fouled. So he goes to the free throw line and he makes 2 free throws, and they are up 7 with less than 27 seconds to go. 73-80. But on a made free throw, London throw the ball the length of the court, and Matt Morgan lays it in. And they basically took less than 2 seconds off the clock for a score, 75-80.
You're on a made free throw. You're on the foul line. You stand next to who you guarded, and you know that Matt Morgan's going to get the basketball. And yet he is in the other half of the basketball court, and nobody else is. I mean, that is professional misconduct. It's negligence. You don't, and to be fair, this has been kind of coming with Manchester, because we've talked last couple of weeks about the late game execution, which has been, nigh on woeful. But that was just egregious. In fact, it was jaw-droppingly egregious.
Yeah. But they're still up 5 with 25 seconds to go. So the ball comes in, and I think Manchester are expecting the foul. I think Anderson is expecting a foul, and it doesn't come. And then he does some sort of like underarm shovelly pass sort of thing, which is knocked away by Taylor at the top of London's key, straight to Conor Morgan, who's under the rim, and he drops it in with 17.6 seconds to go. So they've got 4 points back in 9 seconds, London, and they're now only down 3. And Rob's on Rob's on commentary going, maybe a timeout here so you can at least advance the ball into the front court, so that I'm guessing so that when you turn the ball over, they at least have 70 feet to run the other way. But it doesn't. Another risky pass, but Anderson does get it, and then Nelson commits his 5th foul and he's out of the game. So you think, well, he's 1 free throw. It's 12.6 seconds to go. 1 free throw wins the game, basically. But Anderson misses both free throws. So London then running the other way. Obviously, the clock is ticking. And Lewis, I thought, smart foul there. He's 5.6 seconds to go. He can see Morgan is about to go and line up a 3. He's seen that movie play over. So he fouls him on the floor and sends Morgan to the line. Matt Morgan. And he makes both free throws, 79-80. This time there is a timeout and they do advance the ball. Gets into Walsh. There's a few ticks off the clock. I don't know whether he swiped and missed him or the referee let the first one go or whatever, but they managed to get a few ticks off. So Walsh is at the line, 3.4 seconds to go. He makes both free throws, 79-82. Timeout advanced the ball, and obviously up 3.4 seconds to go. You could go for a foul here. There are coaches, one who used to coach your team, who's always on Twitter, saying up 3, foul the ball. And to be fair, when they inbound it to Connor Morgan and he's not facing the basket, that's the point to foul, isn't it? You foul him because he can't just turn in. Mayo's worry is the Jay Cousinard thing at Surrey, where you try and foul him and he turns it into did he turn it into a 4-point play? Certainly turned it into free throws and they won the game. But they didn't foul him. He hands it back to Taylor, who banks in a 3 in a very similar shot to the one he hit a couple of weeks ago to send it to
I don't know. I can't figure out what Manchester were trying to accomplish with that possession, that defensive possession. I mean, you're up 3. They've got Lawton in the game, kind of being the jumping jack in front of the ball, in front of the guys putting the ball in. He's defending the paint. He's diagonally positioned to defend kind of a lob pass into the paint, which isn't going to happen.
Well, you want it to happen would be the thing if you're Manchester.
Exactly, yeah. So he's jumping up and down doing that. Okay. You've got, it's difficult for players because everything changes. Every principle you've ever learned disappears when you're defending the 3-point line and you're up 3. You're happy to give away 2. You probably don't want it to be a lob to the rim for a dunk, but nevertheless, it's better than you're happy to give away 2. That means you don't need to be entirely basket side of your player. You don't need to be, if you're defending the ball, anywhere near the 3-point line, because every basketball player, certainly players at the level of London's players, can step into a 3. And I think we saw Decker do this in the European game earlier this season from memory. Maybe in the Paris game. You know, players can step into a 3. What is a hell of a lot harder is to make a back cut because someone's overplaying you, and then pull up and shoot a 3 with the guy kind of on your hip or behind you. Because you don't get the chance to set your feet. You don't get the chance to jump into a jump stop. You have to be connected to that player. So what they've done is Lawton and Anderson has come up as the ball is returned to Taylor, right? To almost send him back baseline, send him down towards the baseline because he's almost like he's stopping him getting to the middle. That's all right, but he's not got close enough to him. But what he's done is he's set him down to a nice little pocket on a left-hand dribble, which Jordan Taylor is very good at shooting off his left-hand dribble. So he's a comfort zone. And Lawton is backed away as if he's guarding Connor Morgan. Well, he's not guarding Connor Morgan because the ball's gone to Connor Morgan and come back. That's 2 seconds. That means and Jordan Taylor takes a dribble. He hasn't got time to pass the basketball. So what Lawton has to do is to step up. And when Anderson sends him that way, it's a trap. If he traps him, the game is over. But he's so ingrained to guarding his guy. The other 3 guys are just standing there on the other side of the court. And I always thought if I was on the other side of the court in a situation like that, I would be inching across and across and across and across. Because as soon as the ball's thrown in on the other side of the court, there isn't enough time to throw a cross-court pass. So who are you defending? You're not defending anybody, you know? And you just pressure the side. So what London got was basically 2-on-2 basketball with Manchester using normal defensive principles to defend what was an utterly abnormal situation, and they paid for it.
Yeah.
They paid. They got it entirely wrong. And Jordan, he's a bit lucky. He banked the shot, he didn't bank the other one. But that, if you're telling Bozic that he can get that shot for Jordan Taylor off that play, that's 50. Then that's it. And it just had kind of that omni shambles feel about it with the whole last minute for Manchester.
As I say, I can't have done it justice. You really need to see that last minute. It just
the one thing I've cut through though is that who is Manchester's point guard? Because at no point did if it's Nick Lewis, at no point did he have the ball in his hands in the last minute. It is a massive skill of the point guard to get the ball, control the team, and get fouled, and make sure everybody's comfortable. And they looked headless. Throwing the ball to Jamel here and Jamel there, and Lawton as he's falling out of bounds and all of that stuff. They've got to be better than that. Because they threw away a game they should have won. They had won. They won the game.
They had won. Yeah. So into overtime, and I've lost where I am. Where are we? They basically traded scores in overtime. Both getting to the rim. It's a 1-point lead with 1:15 to go to London. Anderson throws a pass away, which allows Caboza to run back a layup. 94-91, 1:09 to go. Walsh drives, and it looked to me like Olaseni knocked that one out of bounds. Certainly, Walsh was fuming.
Yes, I thought so.
With a minute to go, but it's a London ball, and then Morgan drives, Matt Morgan, and this time he kicks it to Connor Morgan on the other side of the floor, opposite to the Decker one that we talked about, and he hits the three, 97-91, and that was basically it.
How many points did they score in overtime? 15, something like that, 12, 15
It was, what was it? It was 82-82, so 17-9.
So 17 points in 5 minutes, so they put up a 34-point quarter in overtime. I can't remember Manchester getting a stop in overtime.
No.
It became a scoring race. The 95-point rule kicked in, and bang, London were going to win it. Manchester just, I've been impressed with the way that they've come together. I mean, Lee didn't play that many minutes in this game, so I'm wondering how
it was weird.
I wonder how his health is. It's because Stampley wasn't playing either, so it wasn't like they were overburdened for players there. I like the way they've come together, and I like the energy they play with, but execution-wise, they leave a lot to be desired, both ends. And if they clear that up, then they've got a roster which can get them up towards the upper half of the table. But if they don't, then they're going to drop games like that. That's a gut punch game for them, because they've played. They've gone man to man with some of London's better players, and they're shown that they're capable. But it don't matter if you can't win the game from 7 points up with 25 seconds left.
Yeah. Matt Morgan, 31 points, 11 rebounds, 14 of 16 free throws. I'm going to have to look up, because the amount of free throws he shoots is unreal. Connor Morgan, 19 points and 9 rebounds, 17 points and 7 assists for Taylor. They had 23 turnovers, London. Walsh again, 22 points. That's the third time in 4 games, his career high. Borcio 16, Lewis and Anderson both with 14. Let's get to the final game of the season, of the show, because the football kicks off in 15 minutes as well, so we've got to rattle through this. Cheshire Phoenix 91, Newcastle Eagles 113. Only 8 players for Newcastle. It was jarring to see a team in 2023 with only 8 players, but obviously with the 2 guys out forever until the end of the year. They were a bit thin on the ground. Tight first 5 minutes, then Rickey McGill inspires a 15-2 finish in the first quarter and a double-figure lead.
Yeah, but I've always been a minimalist.
And Austin was starting this game, and that's the first time that Johnson hasn't started.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that I think Johnson's carried a lot of burden with Newcastle at the beginning of the season. He really has carried. He played a lot of games, played a lot of minutes, and there's a lot of burden on his body. And I think Austin only played 15 minutes in Europe, and also Austin's playing at Cheshire.
Yeah.
And we've commented before, Cheshire haven't been shy about some of the social media that they've put out after winning games. And there was one earlier on in the season, something about LA after they won a game when they went to Newcastle. There was a bit of talk from the bench to Austin, or certainly from Austin to the bench. I don't know who's father who talked to who in that game at Newcastle. So starting him was kind of, okay, that's a game. If there's ever going to be a game he's ready to play, it's going to be that one. And I've figured out with Newcastle now that I can kind of assess how they're going to play within about 4 possessions. It's almost like I don't need to watch the rest of the game. It's 4 defensive possessions, basically. If they are defending with energy and physicality and they're supporting each other, then they're going to be good because it means they're into the game. But they are a team which thinks it has a switch and it doesn't. It has to play. Newcastle have to play hard. If they play hard, they're a tough out. If they don't play hard, because they think they've got a switch that they can take it on, the game just flies past them. That's the games that they've lost over the last couple of weeks. Cheshire, I think they were flat in this game. Ben Thomas said it on the camera a couple of times. And I think it's kind of been coming a little bit. I think to be fair, Friday would have took a lot out of them. Wright played a hell of a on Friday. But defensively, they still gave up 103 in that game on Friday. And defensively, the last couple of weeks, they haven't been, I think, where they need to be as teams are getting better. And so just outscoring teams isn't necessarily going to be a way to beat them. Now, as the league goes on, as teams play each other more times, as they get more familiar with each other. And in this game, I thought Newcastle beat them in all the important kind of categories. They got to the foul line more. They were, every single Newcastle player played their role the way they're meant to. Some of Cheshire's role players really didn't kind of impact the game. Kristen, 10 minutes, didn't score. Hoolan didn't score, or didn't score much, if anything. Whereas, Del Pesh came in for Newcastle and played like a guy who'd missed 4 foul shots in the 4th quarter. He rebounded everything. It was really impactful. Made all the plays that you want your guy to do, and then they have the kind of the mojo of McGill.
Yeah. 2 white threes got it down to 6 midway through the 2nd quarter, but 3rd quarter it was 14-2 run to the Eagles, 47-63. McGill just running the show, basically scoring whenever he wanted to.
Yeah, he did, and also if he wasn't scoring right, Newcastle were getting the ball where they wanted to go. Newcastle left probably 5 fast breaks out there in this game, missing layups or missing dunks when they were throwing transition plays and stuff like that. And I just thought that they were getting, Whitfield got a couple of open threes at the beginning of the 3rd quarter, which he really shouldn't be getting. And the defense was such that Phoenix couldn't quite get into any sort of rhythm. It took Ben Thomas to call Maceo Jack out, and he started making some plays.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
But at that point, they were down, 15, 17 points, and the plays he's making were tough shots, whereas the shots that Eagles were getting were better shots. And McGill, McGill with his jump shot going, I think Laurie Gardner said it in one of the early games of the season, McGill's jump shot's working. He's probably as good as anybody in the league, and I even include Matt Morgan in that. But he's only had it going for about 7 games out of 19, so he's not as good as Matt Morgan, because Matt Morgan's got it going basically all the time. But once he gets into that kind of mode, there was one where he was fouled and he threw one up from kind of over his head from that. It was after the shot, and it still went in all net. He just has that kind of comfort level on the court, which is like, okay, doesn't matter, I can go left, I can go right, I can pull up, I can get where I want, I can make the right play, because he had 39 points. He had 7 assists as well.
Yeah.
On a guard heavy team, that's pretty solid play.
I'm not sure what Cheshire were doing in the last minute, by the way, because all those fouls, they just pushed it from 14 to 22. And me and my points.
There was a couple of things. One, they came back into it from like 19 to 11 in about a minute with 3 minutes to go. And then Stuttle called a timeout, and McGill came back and knocked down a 3, and that was the game. So that was kind of McGill saying, "No, we ain't having any more of this." But the last minute, it was almost like they kind of lost the plot of it. The discipline just disappeared. There was no. They are an emotional team. They run the emotional way. You've got Skylar White who's screaming at the moon, and you've got some of the other guys, Rideau, who's clearly intensely competitive. And some of the other younger guys as well, the American guys who are playing. And it's interesting that at the end of the game, Ben was going with kind of his most solid citizens. He had Stevens on the court, who's a lot more, kind of quietly efficient. He had Jack on the court. He had Oath on the court, and Oath played really well. He was competitive and did what he's meant to do. And Rye on the court. So that was kind of his kind of smartest group, because the emotional guys didn't really do it. But by the end of the game, it was all just a little bit silly. I mean, I'm not a great fan of points difference in a
No.
in a 2-2 situation. If both teams are tied at the end of the season, it might make a spot to a position. I'd just prefer to get out there without getting a player injured in the last minute. But even so, all the fouling was a bit. It just seemed, let's just put the ball down. But even had a timeout with them with like a minute and a half to go, when they're down 19, and Ben's going at the guys, and I'm sitting there thinking, I'll just get out of the gym, save it for the day. This is the day has been a bad day at the office. But it's his team, obviously. He knows how his guys are kind of wired, so he knows what he needs to say to them at various times. But it's like, there's a time you just the white flag goes in. You guys better than us today. We'll get you next time.
Yeah.
And off we go. And that didn't really happen. But yeah, it's intriguing, because you think of the season Cheshire have had, you think the season Newcastle have had, and there's only 2 games difference between them.
Yeah. It's wild.
And to be frank, if Newcastle had showed up in the 2 home games against Bristol and Surrey the way, with a week off to prepare at home against 2 teams who are banged up and not in the best of shape, and they'd be 12-7 as well. So I think what it demonstrates is that this league is really going to come down to motivation. The last second half of the season, how much do teams really want to go through it, and how committed are they? And it's no coincidence, I think, that Newcastle were coming off 3 losses in that game at Cheshire, and McGill showed up. We ain't losing this game. Cheshire probably a little bit different. They were coming off some tiredness at London, but overall, I think throughout the league now, it's going to be, who's ready to play every time, because there's nobody apart from London with their full group who can kind of flick a switch.
Yeah. So Jack, 5 of 10 threes, 27 points. Wright, 18 points, 11 rebounds. Rideau, 13.6 rebounds and 7 assists. At the time of writing this down, McGill had 39 points, 6 of 12 threes, and 11 of 11 from free throws. I think he's now got 37 points and 9 of 9 from free throws. Austin, 17 points and 6 rebounds. And I think Green has now got 19 points and 16 rebounds. Maybe 17, I can't remember.
Oh, well, there you go. I'm sure Ricky
I think some free throws were given to the wrong person. And
what got me was that, halfway through this game that McGill was having, where his shot hasn't touched the rim halfway through the fourth quarter, he lets Jordan Johnson shoot a technical shot. I would have been, whoa, off you go. If you normally shoot them, it's me today, pal. But no, I mean, look, to score 37, and then we've talked about with Matt Morgan, but the same with McGill, to be fair to him.
Well, those 2 have both got 3 30+ games this season.
But to score 37 in any game in this league is not easy. I mean, this isn't, it happens rarely that teams that guys are going over 35 points a game. So and you have to kind of applaud him for that. And he just had that kind of rhythm going. Mojo McGill, that's what they call him.
My start of the game was both teams made 26 twos, both teams made 12 threes. The difference was 3 of 11 from the free throw line versus 25 of 28.
I thought Newcastle were the aggressor. Cheshire shot a lot more threes than Newcastle did. Newcastle the aggressor and kind of getting to the rim, but you got to make your foul shots. Yeah, absolutely. And they're not a great foul shooting team, Cheshire, though, are they? So it's
they're not. No.
A surprise.
No. And there was a load in the last minute that shouldn't have been there. So let's go through the table. London 19-3, Caledonia 12-6, Cheshire 12-7.
They played 22 games in, what is it now? It's December the 18th, so we started 3 months ago. And they played 22 games in 3 months and the European game. What are they going to do? What are these guys going to do? They must be planning on saving some budget by cutting half the team and no games to play. When are they going to just, anyway, whatever, 22 games.
Did I say Cheshire were 12-7? Newcastle 10-9, Bristol 10-10, Sheffield 9-8, Leicester 8-10, Manchester and Surrey both 6-13, and Plymouth 2-15.
Yeah, I mean there was no Plymouth this week, and we know that obviously Johnson's gone now, don't we? So he's going to get replaced by somebody. And there was no Sheffield this week, was there?
No.
And we know they've still got, so they're trying to keep 11 players happy without any games to play. Good luck with
Yeah.
that. Oh well, yeah, no. Let's
So,
let's just hope for another massive meltdown from someone next week in the last minute. Keep it entertaining.
It's Christmas Eve, babe, in the drunk tank next week.
Oh wow.
But I think an old man said to me, won't see another one. I think it's a 1 o'clock game on Christmas Eve, so we might have an early start.
Oh right, yeah.
Unless you have some special Forester tradition on Christmas Eve.
Well, I normally get dragged to the pictures. I think I did in a fit of being pleasant agree to go this year. I'm not sure what time that is. I'm sure we'll find a way.
I'm sure we'll find. Can't be doing it on
Santa
Christmas Day.
Santa cannot get in the way of Santa is not getting in the way of the SMB. No,
Sorry.
we will prevail.
I'm just being told we can definitely not do it on Christmas Day next week. My wife has shouted from the background.
Is that really? I mean, yeah, okay. I'll live it up. I mean, have you seen what's on the telly? I mean, really?
Well, it's probably all rubbish, isn't it?
Yeah.
Speaking of telly, football's about to start, so I need to go. So Dave and I will find a way on Christmas Eve next week. But for now, have a great week. See you soon. Goodbye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.